Welcome to the ninth episode on machine learning for beginners. We have with us today Barkha, who is a software development engineer at LinkedIn. And I also know her personally because we shared a common undergrad college back in India. And she has a tremendous amount of experience back when she was an intern at Intuit, and also she served as a deputy convener as in one of the student placement committees. So she has a lot of background of understanding how the placement process looks like in India versus how she landed jobs and internships in US pretty well. So she knows both the ends of how to get an internships and what are the commonly faced challenges in India or in US, and especially for Indian students in US. So welcome Barkha in this episode, and thanks for spending out an hour on weekend. I know it can be really tough.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. So, can you tell us something about your background in computer science and what really intrigued you about pursuing this from your undergrad to searching for a master's degree over here, and how you learned your key skills being an intern at Intuit, and how you finally landed up a job at LinkedIn?
Okay. One, I want to say thank you for having me. I've actually kind of been following this because I know some of the people that you had on. So it's actually been really interesting to see kind of how diverse and like how everyone has kind of grown apart. Like and everyone's like out of Gandhinagar now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a little about me. I did my undergrad at Dhirubhai Ambani, where I got my bachelor's in ICT, which is Information and Communication Technology. It's not pure computer science, like we've all done it.
Yeah.
But this actually completely reminds me of my like the statement of purpose that I wrote for my master's program. But I think I've always been interested in computers, specifically I think ever since I can remember, because so my dad is a hardware guy, is how I put it. He actually works for Sophos, which is a cyber. So all the captive portals that we use and like we weren't able to access social networks, that was my dad. But I think from like a very young age, my dad and I like we used to fiddle around with computers quite a bit. So we would like put them all apart, like open it up completely to see what individual parts were doing and like put it all back together. And like I remember having Yahoo Mail and Hotmail, and like it's just, I think specifically for kids of the 90s, we've seen a lot of things and we've seen a very rapid change in technology and just development. Like we went from dial-up connection probably to like unlimited wireless, right? Everywhere. So, and like there have been just numerous companies that have like risen and just fallen, like Orkut and MySpace and, you know, the whole Facebook generation. So I think just seeing the sheer amount of development that was happening around computers from a very young age is kind of what pushed me to kind of make a career in the field. So yeah, I was actually kind of always pretty sure that I wanted to do something in computers. I wasn't very sure what I wanted to do. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever stop learning or ever stop being perpetually confused about what we want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a little about me. I eventually chose to get my master's as well. I was also very sure about getting a master's for my undergrad itself. So I had always focused one on a little of my grades and like forming proper connections to get recommendations and stuff. But also I always focused on getting internships specifically because I was always an industry oriented person, is how I put it. I always wanted to work in the industry. Never really thought a lot about research until maybe after coming here. Yeah, so I think I'd been interning in different companies from my first year of college. So I have quite a vast portfolio of companies. And I also wasn't very specific on the kind of company I wanted to apply to, which I think is a little important as well. Initially, when you're starting off, because if you know what you want to do, that's great, right? There's nothing better. But in your first year of college, it's really hard to figure out like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life, right?
Yes.
So I actually went to a lot of random companies and was like, this is not what I'm going to do. So even that is important, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Yeah, I've had internships from pretty much my first year of college, and then my entire master's also. I was working firstly for a startup for almost a period of 9 months, where it was only me, the CEO, and one other designer, and I was the only engineer. And the CEO had actually built the MVP already, but we were doing a lot of bug fixes and stuff. So I was the engineer on that project for about nine months. And then after that, I had Intuit over the summer, which I then extended to my last semester of master's as well. Because again, the project that I was working on there, me and my manager were the only people working on the project.
Wow.
I was again the only engineer. So I told them, I'm like, oh, I have bandwidth during my semester. I can work part-time for you guys if that works for you, because the project hadn't completed by then. So I'm like, I can help get the code into production, and then like I can leave or whatever, something like that. So my manager was really happy because he wouldn't have to train another engineer to do it. But yeah, and then like during my undergrad, I've done a lot of things besides studying also, I feel like.
Yeah, it's deserved. Yeah. It's deserved. Like you are supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So studying was an afterthought, I believe. I messed up really badly in my first semester. Like, so in my introduction to programming, which was C, I think I got like a 4 out of 10. Wow. And I remember I had to answer questions on why I got a 4 during my master's applications, because they're like, you want to pursue computer science, but why do you have this bad a grade? So kind of, yeah, that was a little bit of a mess up. But I was also a part of the student placement cell, where I was deputy convener. So me and a group of almost 30 other students, we helped another maybe 600 to 500 students find jobs, or assisted them to the best of our abilities, is how I'd like to put it. But yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, definitely. So like as you mentioned, like you have experience of helping people getting jobs back in India. So just to explain what exactly it means, like she was a part of a student placement committee where she was one of the coordinators who would help companies visit campus, and they would be interviewing students on a mass scale, where they would be doing a mass recruitment. So based on that, how do you differentiate between how the application process looks like in India versus how the application process works like in USA? And this would be all in a perspective of a CS student applicant.
Right. Okay, so there are a couple things. There's a lot of differences actually, but one, I feel like when you're doing campus recruitment, it's very different because you're competing with maybe another 300 students around you. Whereas when you're applying off campus, generally what we do here in the States is we apply off campus. I feel like career fairs only get you so far. So I think the recruitment process is very different in general, because when we're in college, in bachelor's, we expect to kind of get a job through the university. Very few of us think about like applying off campus, or if we apply off campus, it's to like the bigger companies that maybe don't come to campus, right? Also, in India, I feel like the hiring process is very straightforward, in the sense where it's pretty much only coding rounds, I think. Yeah. You do have behaviorals towards the end, but I feel like if you're a really good programmer, they probably don't cut you out because you don't have social skills. And the biggest difference is this. So when you're getting recruited in the USA, your interviewer is also looking at how you would be as a coworker. So for example, if you and him or her are on the same team, right? Would they enjoy working with you, right? Do they think that you would be a good collaboration, or like, would you be involved on the team? Would you be actually able to give ideas to the team, right?
Communicating with them. Yeah.
Exactly. So your skills will only get you so far, but how do you work with other people? And they genuinely, like, you will have questions like this. Like, your interviewer will be asked, would you want this person to be on the same team as you? So the minute that they make it very personal is the minute that you take a step back. So if I'm asked whether a friend of mine who I know is a good programmer, maybe not a good collaborator, right? if I'm asked, okay, this person's going to be on your team, do you mind? I might be like, I actually do mind. Whereas in India, I feel like we're not there yet. And I think in both places, it's equivalently competitive. So I don't think that's very different. Both countries have brilliant programmers and brilliant minds. So I think maybe on the programming side, it's actually kind of similar.
Yep.
You do always think that you would be asked very difficult questions as well during your interviews, but you're actually not. You're asked very fundamental problems because they know, like, okay, inverting a binary tree is not going to get you anywhere in the industry, right? Like, you're asked that once in your life for your interviews, and then you never use that knowledge anywhere, right? So I think the fundamental difference is how they view you as an interviewee. I think that is quite different. Also, here the process itself is a little different as well, where you're in contact more with your recruiter. You can ask to push deadlines. You can ask to like get offers more quicker, or you can demand things a little. Whereas we definitely can't do that in India. Here as well, I think when you're given an offer, you always negotiate because generally, in my opinion, they do lowball you a little. So because they expect you to negotiate up, right? Whereas in India, we definitely never negotiate. Initially, right? In the first job of your life, you probably don't negotiate, especially if you've gotten it on campus. There's no room for negotiation. And then I feel like there's a big difference in the kind of candidates that you have as well in India versus here. Because we focus so much in India on just programming, I feel like we're not well-rounded individuals most of the time. Whereas here, I feel like people are more well-rounded, right? They're doing something that they're passionate about. They also have like a very good approach to problem solving and are fun people to be around, which is also important. I know that a lot of companies in the States specifically do look at culture fit, which is pretty good. Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of differences. Yeah, the initial funnel is what is always hard. Like, how do you get known by a company to even get the first call? Like, okay, this is your hacker rank test, but how do I get there? I think that in India might be easier if it's through campus recruitment because you don't have to worry about that, right? Like, you're always going to go give the test regardless if you qualify for whatever the minimum pointer and all that is. Whereas here, you have to fight for even that. So yeah, I think that's a little different.
Yeah, I guess in US, it's the soft skills is an additional factor that they account for. Apart from that, being in India, the campus recruitment handles that thing very well. So it's just the technical perspective they are evaluating for.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe here, even if your technical skills aren't like you're not always providing the optimal code, for example, but your soft skills are good and your brain is working in the right direction, you'll probably get hired.
Yeah.
Whereas in India, you probably always have to be at optimal code.
Yeah.
I actually never went through the campus placement cycle, even though I was helping lead it. And I did that on a moral ground as well because I knew I wasn't going to take the job. So I don't want to take someone else's opportunity. So I applied off campus in India as well, everywhere. And I was really lucky because the startups that I applied to, they did not have these tests and stuff. They used to give me projects to build and send back to them, which is the better approach in my opinion, because I was working as a front-end developer. So for me, like knowing how a linked list works is not important whatsoever. So like I had to actually build probably Angular projects or React projects and send them back. It was given like a problem description, was given a certain amount of time period, and then they'd look at like how clean my code was, how optimal it was compiling. They'd look at page load times and stuff like that, which is more important in my opinion. So I was actually lucky in India as well that I didn't have to go through the whole geeks for geeks, like studying and that. Yeah.
Right. So jumping on to our next question. So I always get asked this question a lot. Do locations and the name brands of universities in US play a major role, which is one thing I'm still not able to figure out, because I don't know if the current state of not getting an internship is a curse of me being in Arizona, or is it just me not interested in getting an industrial internship. So do locations like being in California or being in Seattle really help you get an internship, and which can ultimately get you converted to a job, or being on the East Coast side is a curse of you selecting those places? So what's your take on that and your experience on that?
Okay, so I'll approach it from two different perspectives. One is location, one is the name of the university, because I think they're different. So for locations, whenever I am asked whether a person should go to an average university on the East Coast versus average university on the West Coast, I always say the West Coast. And the reason that I believe location matters to a certain extent is because if you're in an average university where maybe the university is not that well known or something, if you're in a city, if you're in the Bay Area, if you're in Seattle, a lot of companies hold open houses and like open mic nights and networking events and conferences and stuff. And this happens on a regular basis. So if you're in those cities, then you have to start networking. And I believe in masters specifically, networking definitely helps you land a job. It's a lot. Even referrals will get your name through the door, or rather than applying through the whole mass funnel. So if you're in certain cities where like meetups tend to happen quite a bit, you should actively take advantage of that, because if nothing, you'll meet a lot of new people, and people are like working on the craziest of projects like that you couldn't even imagine, right? So you'll hear a lot about new tech, you'll hear a lot about new ideas, and then you could say, oh, you know what, I was actually working on a project that was quite similar to this, right? And then you pitch what you're working on. So it's a process, networking, but it genuinely does help, in my opinion. Because I definitely did go to a couple of conferences in the Bay Area. I went to some in LA. And at least you get to know certain people. Like I met people who were working on 4chan, which I didn't even know that people work on still.
No, even I didn't.
So, but like a lot of apparently American government projects are still being done in 4chan because the cost of actually updating the entire system is too high.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is just like random knowledge that you probably don't have and that you gain when you meet people. Yeah. And it does seem a little daunting because we are not used to this. We're not used to just like going to a place where we don't know anyone and like having to mingle forcefully.
Yep.
But that is another skill that you acquire, which is very, very important, even internally when working in a company, because you have to collaborate with people across different teams. And if I just ping someone on a team and I don't have any personal connection with them, there's a high probability that like it'll take a lot longer to get the job done. Whereas if I know the person, I can be like, oh, let's meet over lunch and let's actually get this done, or something like that, right? Yeah. Forming a personal connection is always going to get things done faster. So I do believe that location matters if you're in average universities. But then again, if you're in a well-known university, the only place where I believe it helps is the initial mass funnel, is what I call it, where all the applicants apply to the same pool, right? But they'll be like, okay, maybe certain university people, if the recruiters are from that university, right? Or they're just generally known for a good computer science program, right? Then they'll definitely look at your profile, right? So obviously good universities will help, but they'll only help you in that initial stage of getting your resume into a recruiter. After that, it's completely on you as an individual. Yeah. So if you're, again, I keep emphasizing on the fact that networking is very important. Even just reaching out to random people on LinkedIn, people are very nice. They generally do reply. So if you're confused about like a company, or if you have certain questions about it, or just want to know what the recruitment process looks like, just reach out to someone that has recently joined the company in 2-3 months. And people generally help out. Like I got asked a lot of questions on what was the internship experience like at Intuit, right? Yes. So I kind of created a message that I copy pasted inside.
Yeah, even I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So people are very nice. Just make sure that your questions are specific and don't ask the general ones like what's the pay like, or what are the benefits like, right? Ask more about the work itself. Conversion rates are also a valid question to ask. But yeah, so I I wouldn't say it's the end of the world if you're not in a good university.
Yep.
It just makes the initial step a little harder. So that's why reaching out to people, whether it's seniors from your undergrad college, seniors from your master's college, just random people on the internet, people will refer you, and referrals really help. So
And
yeah.
like one of the parameters that I actually missed on like in addition to locations and universities, one thing that recruiters always tend to reject or maybe accept certain offers is based on work experience. How much do you think work experience actually plays a role while getting a job or an internship? Is it real, or is it like something you can cover up on your profile, or are there chances of people being preferred over someone else who do not have a work experience? Like, I guess you didn't have a official more than
No.
1 year experience
Yeah.
from after your bachelor's. You were a fresh graduate when you
Yeah.
joined over here. So did you face any kind of such circumstances over here, or did you see anyone else getting over out of it?
Okay. So there are a couple of things here as well. One is if you have a strong profile, that'll always cover work experience. So if you have very good projects in the field that you want to work in, if you have just a very general good background, you're always going to be fine, in my opinion. Work experience also does help a lot to get in through the door initially, because, for example, if you're working in a competitor company, right, then they know that you already know the domain and you've already worked there for a while. So it's easy for you to pick up skills and transfer knowledge. So, for example, if you're working in like one of the big four financial companies, or if you were working in a bank and you're applying to another bank, right? They already know that you have the necessary knowledge, right? And that you already have worked in the industry for a while. So then like they can talk to colleagues of yours, right, to get referrals or things like that. So work experience definitely does help. Was it a problem anywhere for me? I would say no.
Okay.
Uh, because if you're applying after masters, generally you apply for new grad roles, which don't require work experience. I've had friends who have like 2, 3 years of work experience, and they're also in new grad roles right now. The only place where I think it'll differ a little is when you're negotiating your salary, you can ask for more. And also, most companies, I think, they would take you on as a software engineer level 1, and then if you're a new grad with maybe no work experience, you may get promoted in 2, 3 years, depending on whatever their timelines are. But if you already have 2, 3 years of experience, they might promote you in an earlier cycle.
Oh,
So I think that is the difference. If you're applying for new grad roles, there isn't really like a mandate for work experience. I was told at certain companies, however, that I didn't have enough work experience, which didn't make sense to me because it was for new grad roles that don't require work experience. So then I think it's just a cop out on the company's behalf.
right.
I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't have work experience. Just do projects in the field that you want to work in and just show that you're dedicated and like you can stick to one project for a while. And then network. That is what will definitely help. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, talking about networking, what were the channels that you used for applying to universities? I know, for example, like I can call you an ambassador of LinkedIn as of now. So yeah, LinkedIn is something like it's a great potential tool
Yeah.
for getting connected to jobs.
Yeah.
What other places did you use? One on the top of my head is Glassdoor. Are there any other options one should always keep in mind? For example, meeting new places, like you mentioned, there are a lot of events going on where you can
Yeah.
just barge in and get someone's attention and
Yeah.
get into touch with them.
Right.
What is something that you found out new on your own over here and found out very useful to you?
So I think I think it's called meetups.com that just hosts a lot of different meetups that happen. They could be, and there are like various meetups. It could be anything from like pottery and art to like learning Python from like beginner Python or beginner R to events at specific companies. And then if you take any company, they always have some conference. So take GitHub, take Microsoft, take Google, take LinkedIn, for example, right? And if you go to the websites, I'm pretty sure if you just search for like Google conferences, you'll find Google I/O and things like that. So you just have to be aware of what the dates are. So just put them all in your calendar and set a reminder 6 months before, depending on when tickets go out.
Right.
So that is important. Also, if you're a student, you do get discounts for all of this stuff. And those discounts actually run out pretty quick because they only have a certain limited seating for students, right? A lot of universities also reimburse these amounts. Reach out to seniors if you want a place to crash for a couple of days for these conferences, right? Don't feel shy about doing that. I think
I'm coming to LA.
Yeah. I'm not in LA anymore.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that was one thing I did. And then I think so for me, the career fair at USC is also pretty big. I didn't get a job from it, but at least what I ended up with was like a collated list of maybe 200, 300 companies that I remembered to apply to, right? Because otherwise, if you have to think of companies off the top of your head, right, you will only come up with maybe a finite list of 50 to 60 companies, right? So career fairs are pretty useful because you can go through the entire list and say, okay, these are the companies that I actually want to apply to or that I'm interested in. Each university also holds, like at USC, we had something called Trojan Talks, which is where companies would come, and it was like the initial presentation that you have of a company and they pitch to you what the company does. So if you go to those events on campus as well, those are super important because you can talk one-on-one with engineers. Plus, because I feel like they're a lot more common here, lesser people go. So you get more face time with the engineer or the recruiter. So if you talk to them about the projects that you're doing, again, you might end up with at least like an internship, or at least like he'll be like, okay, here's my card, reach out to me, we'll see if we have anything for you, right? Also, I think it's always nice to just reach out to people and like let them know that it was great talking to you. I enjoyed our conversation and looking forward to meeting you in the future. Just like little things like emails and stuff also do go a long way. So I think that was another helpful thing. Trying to think of what else was helpful. No, I think just generally applying to conferences, going to meetups, career talks to a certain extent are also useful. So yeah.
And apart from those personal networking experiences, following the conventional common way of applying to universities, what could be an estimated timeline of, for example, the one thing that I knew that applying for summer internships, or let's say starting in May jobs, you need to start applying in, let's say, November or December to be ahead of your schedule, or at least getting a priority over other students.
I would actually say November, December is also late.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you're looking, and I've actually talked to quite a lot of people on this. In my opinion, if you're looking for a summer intern for say next year, the best time to apply is actually probably July and August.
Wow.
The earlier, the better. The reason being, there's a couple reasons actually. So if you start initially, actually the process might go on a little longer as well. So you have more time in between companies. Also, if you start maybe August, by November, you have a job. So you can chill your next semester.
Yeah.
And what happens initially is, so the way that these headcounts go is, even though you pass the interviews, for example, if they don't have a team to assign you to, you will get a reject, right? So the earlier you apply, that the chance of that happening is much lower because there are teams available that are looking for people. So for example, when I got into it, for example, I started applying in August and September, and I had the offer by the first week of November. And even when I was applying for full time, I started applying September, October, and I had the offer the first week of November.
Wow.
So and I was actually told this by the recruiter, what most interview processes look like is you have all the rounds that you have, for example, then all the reviews of you are kind of culminated and they go to a hiring committee, depending on the company. That hiring committee kind of looks at, okay, what everyone said about you and what your scores look like. Then they decide whether to move forward with your packet or not. If they decide to move forward, then they go for team matching, where they look at your profile, and then certain managers look at your profile and say, okay, you know what, I can take this person on my team because I feel like their skills will be useful here.
Right.
So if you don't, even if you clear the process but you don't get assigned a team, you will get a reject. So the earlier you apply, the chance of that happening is much lower. So I was told this. I'm like, she had actually told me, she's like, you're still applying early, so I'm pretty sure you'll get a team, so it should be fine.
Oh, okay. And, and in general, how is the decision timeline looking like? For example, I have always seen people also getting job offers, or at least starting their calls for interviews back in March or April, even if it's let's say for internships or jobs. Is it an expected deadline to get your job offers by April or March ending, even in the case?
No. So I think that it depends on you, and it also depends on the company. So if I pushed for all my offers and their deadlines. So I specifically told them very in the beginning, saying, like, I only have 2 weeks, I only have 3 weeks. What can be done? Is there anything I can do to assist to make the process faster? Right? You have to constantly not barrage them with emails and spam them with emails, but just send like every other day a reminder saying, has my packet, is the process set up, are dates set up? If you already had the interviews, like what is it looking like? And just tell them honestly, we do this in India where we hide our other offers from companies, but I wouldn't recommend doing that here. Just tell them that like, okay, I've gotten into some XYZ company and their deadline is, some date, and I really want to join this company, the one that you interviewed at, but which is why I want an offer before this date, an acceptance or a rejection, either way.
Right.
So definitely you can push your timelines here a lot more than you can in India.
Okay.
Yeah. So for my intern offer, the timeline was insane. I think I went Intuit was the first company I applied for. Forgot that I interviewed there because I didn't hear back for 2 months and then got the offer. So it's very random. Yeah, so I think intern you have less control, but full time I think LinkedIn I applied maybe end of September. First week of October I interviewed, and then first week of November I got the offer.
Okay.
So generally, if you do an on-site, you can give them 2 weeks to get the offer is the timeline that I'd look at. And if you've had your last round, I think 2 weeks is a good time. After 2 weeks, if you're not hearing back from them, I would suggest either calling or just emailing a lot.
Yeah, just ping them for an update or something.
Yeah, just ask them for an update saying like, hey, not to bother you or anything, but it's been about 2 weeks and I just wanted to know if there'd been any progress on my like packet or whatever.
Yeah.
So and just be very frank about it. You don't have to hide anything, right? So just be very open about it. I think that's very nice. Also be very nice to recruiters.
Yes.
Be very, very nice to them.
Yeah, it's something very important for us as engineers to learn that.
Yeah.
Like you have to be much more softer than the softest skills you can possess.
Soft, be polite, say thank you a lot. Like, don't like throw a tantrum, that kind of thing. Because I remember my recruiter at LinkedIn was the most nicest person I probably ever like talked to on the phone. But I remember I was very stressed about the offer because I had a couple other deadlines and I really wanted their offer. So I didn't want to decline the other ones because then it's a risk.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to do that. But I genuinely wanted the offer. So she would call me every day with updates saying like don't worry about it. Your scores are looking good. We feel like it's gone to the hiring committee today. I'll hear back at the end of the day. I'll call you. So just be very nice to them and just watch your language and your tone in your emails. I think that's important.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And just one of the last questions. Like I know this might be very, very naive question, but what would be some tips from your side regarding building up your resume or tips, CV, or any say SOP for a company? What did you found that at least I won't say there are a lot of do's that are possible out there, but what are the don'ts that you found out later on while applying to various places that you would suggest that at least it would be a safe don't to be suggesting to someone who is preparing for an interview or application?
So you don't actually have to write the whole statement of purpose for the companies. Like, why do you want to work there and all? If it's optional, don't write it because I don't think people are reading it. So don't waste your time behind that. And that was actually something that I read in a couple places and then I started kind of abiding by it. I think then for resume specifically, stick to one page. People don't want to read more than that. If you have projects and like work that you've done, papers that you've published, put that on top. Your school isn't as important as that because that's the first thing that they're going to read. So work experience, projects, school, and like publications or something, maybe if you have, put that more on top. But stick to one page as much as possible. Projects also, I don't think that you should have more than three.
Oh.
3 max 4. If you have less work experience, then you can obviously add more projects. But stick to projects that you think are very important and translate well to the company that you're applying to. Maybe 1 or 2 lines at max. And about the project that you're doing, make sure that even HRs can understand it, because a lot of times it's non-technical folks that initially screen it as well.
Yeah.
But also make sure that you have somewhere enough like technical jargons as well, because sometimes you'll read a sentence and be like, oh, this sounds very smart, but it may be just utter crap in our opinion. I also had this section at the very end called skills, where I directly wrote, okay, I'm like, these are the languages I can do. These are the front-end frameworks that I can work on. These are the different OSs that I can work on. So that would have all the technical keywords that different algorithms look for in your resume itself. So I put that at the very bottom. Work experience as well. I feel like putting bullet points for everything over sentences also helps because it's more specific. And also remember that if someone wanted to walk through your resume in half an hour, it should be possible. So it shouldn't be like flooded with information, right? It's not your life story, but it's like the highlights of your life. Right. So keep it short, sweet, clear. Don't throw everything, all the information of your project on it, because then what will you talk about, right? It's all there already.
Yeah.
So keep enough, like it has to be intriguing, but not the entire story. So you have to play your resume a little.
It should kind of look like a teaser for your profile.
Exactly, a teaser for the highlights of your life. Yeah, and the skills section I think helps as well, because like the initial resume screening algorithms, if they're looking for certain keywords, they'll always be there. So look at exactly what the company wants and what kind of projects they've been working on, so that you can, if you've done projects in a similar area, it'll help. And I think reading about the company, I think most tech companies have engineering blogs. So you'll know the kind of work that they're doing. If they have open source projects, just look through them once at least, so that in your behavioral rounds, you have something to talk about. I think also being asked about, like, okay, so each company will have some values and some set of goals or whatever. So it's a very common HR question to be asked, like, okay, these are the set of values that we have. Describe one moment in your life where you've reflected these like values or whatever, right? And honestly, if you haven't, don't feel terrible to like go over the top with one of the experiences that you've had. Don't feel bad about it, right? Like it may have been like a 2-minute thing for you in your life, but like make it sound like it was
something big.
Like, it was something big, yeah. So don't feel bad about over embellishing things. Also, the way that I think I ended up with my offers and internships was through Gracehopper. Yeah, so I ended up getting pretty much all my offers from there. Okay. I didn't go to the conference, but they have this resume database that you can just put your resume in, and then you get calls from recruiters, and like you're on the recruiter mailing list, for example. Right. So it's a smaller funnel than the overall one.
Yep.
And I think anyone can put their resume in. So
is it specific to women or something?
No, it's not. It's actually a misconception. It's catered more towards women in tech to give them the opportunities as well, to give us the opportunities as well. But it's not anti-men. So anyone that encourages women in tech or believes in the cause can go.
Oh, okay.
But there's generally a lot of hiring that goes on at Gracehopper. So if you're a female or a male or anyone and you aren't able to find an offer, maybe going to the conference is a good idea. Yep. Because the conference is specifically for like not specifically for only getting hired, but that's what a lot of people go there to do. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that there are other conferences like this as well that focus on have more career fairs and stuff. So definitely keep a lookout on the dates, because sometimes the dates keep differing. Yeah, and I think also for just getting internships, the earlier you start, the better. And there's actually, I forgot to mention this, but there's a lot of GitHub repos as well where people kind of contribute to just intern links. So like these are the places where you can apply for an intern. I remember I came across one GitHub repo that had it sorted on the basis of the time that it takes to apply for the internship. So like there were ones that was like more than 5 minutes, and then 2 to 4 minutes, and then like less than 2 minutes, that kind of way. Because I think applications to certain companies, they just require to fill name, email, and like resume. That's it. So keep a lookout for GitHub repos as well. A lot of people post really interesting links on that. If you're prepping for interviews, again, I did a GitHub repo that had like a list of questions and the companies it was asked at. And I went through that. I didn't going through the entire lead code or entire Geeks for Geeks is impossible. So if you're applying to like Google, stick to questions that are commonly asked there. If you've gotten an offer and you don't know whether your offer is low or not, or like whether it's high enough for the experience that you have, the place that you're living at, there's Glassdoor has a pay calculator. There's Salary Watchdog as well. I think there's PayScale as well. I'm not so sure about that one, but definitely do your research and make sure that you're getting the best offer possible. Also, if the recruiter has, generally, I think what they do is they'll call you, they'll tell you the offer saying, okay, we're offering XYZ with, X amount of stocks or whatever. And if you want to negotiate, tell them immediately after the call before you get the actual DocuSign of the offer. Because once they've actually mailed the offer out to you, it's much harder for them to go back and update the term. Right? So do that before the actual offer comes out. That was something that I didn't know, but someone told me. And don't feel embarrassed to negotiate your offer. Like just go back and tell them like, upon researching what other competitive companies in the area are providing, I believe that I should be offered 15K more or whatever. And if you believe that you should be getting 5K more off, ask for 10, ask for 20. Like worst case scenario, they will not reject your offer. Like your offer won't go away. We will end up saying like, I'm sorry, but this is the max. This is the best that we can do for you. So don't feel bad about negotiating. One thing. Push as much as you possibly can.
Yes. Okay. That's pretty much it that I had, and I would just ask, like, do you have any words of advice in general for searching for any grad student who is applying for, I would not say words of advice, I would say, let's say, words of inspiration for anyone who is applying for jobs and internships over here as a grad student? So any kind of words.
I think I'd say don't stress out too much. It seems like the end of the world. It seems super competitive, right? But you will find something. There's something available for everyone. It might, even if it doesn't end up to be in the domain that you want, you can always work internally in a company towards the domain that you want. So don't stress. It's not the end of the world. And it's honestly not that hard. Just talk to a lot of people. Reach out to the most random people on LinkedIn. They don't know you, so they don't really, like, even if you send them something really bad, it's just going to be an afterthought in their head and it doesn't matter. So don't be embarrassed about what you're doing. You need to do what you need to do. So don't feel bad about it. And ask, referrals go a long, long way. So if you have friends in India that are in good companies, they can refer you to companies here. So yeah, just ask them for referrals.
Okay.
Yeah, so use your friends.
Yeah, definitely. And
that's the moral of the story.
Yep. Sure. yeah, that's all from my side, and I hope like we had some really great insights. I mean, unlike the other videos where I focus more on the machine learning jobs, this is much more
Yeah.
specific to in general how to
Yeah.
apply for internships and how to apply for
Yeah.
jobs. And like you have a good profile of working within the whole
Yeah.
application, the in between of transition of any grad student from
Yeah.
his studies
I've
to.
I've interviewed in a lot of places to end up at where I am. So for every success story that you see, there's a lot of hard work behind it. There's like for every five interviews that you give, there's maybe 200 rejected ones. So
Wow.
don't feel bad about it. And once you have an offer, just chill for a while.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
like you deserve a treat. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for spending a weekend with us for this, and I hope the viewers get some great insights from this, and they would be able to connect with you. I'll link down your LinkedIn profile
Perfect. Yeah.
in the
That's
description below.
Yeah, I'm gonna promo LinkedIn everywhere now.
Yeah, at least
Yeah.
now you can't say a no to like kind of anyone connecting you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So,
Feel free to reach out, like if you have any certain questions or anything. Yeah, I'm happy to.
definitely.
From my limited knowledge.
Sure. Definitely. Okay. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Have a great day.